Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start. My name is Father Christians. I'm chairperson of the Standing Committee of Public Accounts. Next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids. In the benches there is Ms. Lizette Kluter. I'm going to give the members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then the members online, and then over to the AG and the Audit Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pat Letter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon. Nama French Mbombo Scopa. Thank you.
Members online.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Benedict Van Minnen, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, colleagues. Basil Petrus, member of this committee.
Thank you very much, members. Over to the AG and Audit Committee for introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members. Name is Lutando Mehlumakol from the Office of the AG.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sebulon Africa, Auditor General responsible for Westkaro Audit.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Preston Whaley. I'm responsible for Sandana by IDZ Audit.
Good afternoon, members and Chairperson, Audit Committee. My name is Tebo Mohlomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Comfort Bunting, Audit Committee for the department.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, honorable members. My name is Annelies Silniers. I'm a member of the Audit Committee of Economic Development and Tourism.
Good afternoon, members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sazi Ndwandwa. I'm with Westkaro Audit Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. My name is Paul Slack, Chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee of the Saldanha Bay IDZ. And then while I have the floor, the Chairperson of the Audit Committee of Atlantis couldn't be here today, and she's asked me to represent today in that capacity as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Online. There's nobody online. We're gonna do the department first. The AG on the department, and then we're gonna do. You've also asked that we do Atlantis after that. So let's do the two, and then we'll go over to the Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Phil Christians. I'm chairperson of SCOPA. Next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids, and at the back there is Mr. Zed Kruter. I'm going to give the members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then the members online, and then we'll go to the HOD department. Minister Ivan Meyer made an apology for this afternoon, so he will not be with us. Over to you, members.
Afternoon, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Lecker.
Good afternoon, Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Norma French Mbombo, good afternoon, member of the SCOPA.
Members online.
Good afternoon. I'm Benedicta van Binnen, member of SCOPA.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and colleagues. Basil Petrus.
Thank you very much, HOD and department introductions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Joanne Johnston, Head of Department for Economic Development and Tourism. I'm now going to start at the back, which is our CFO, and ask her to introduce herself and then just go through maybe just to the department first, or do you want me to do all the entities?
I think let's do everybody, then we're done with that. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
And the entities, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, I'm going to ask if Ronald Stander could also introduce herself and then her team, including the chair, and then followed by Neville Maikis, which from the acting CEO of Freeport Saldanha, him and his team, and then finally Matt Cullinan from Atlantis SEZ, if he could then introduce himself and then his team as well. Over to you, Memuna.
Good afternoon, Memuna Abrams, Chief Financial Officer for the Department of Economic Development.
Abida Jordan, Deputy Director, Financial Accounting, Department of Economic Development and Tourism. Ronald Mott, Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Internal Control Manager.
Good afternoon, Ilse van Skalkwyk, Acting DDG in DDAT.
Hi, Rashid Tawfiq. Good afternoon, DDG in the department. Thanks.
Nizam Joseph, Program Manager, Program 7.
John Peters, Program Manager, Program 2.
Ronald?
Can see. Hi, I'm Ronald Stander and I'm the CEO of Westgrow.
Good afternoon, I'm Shirley Zinn. I'm the Chair of Westgrow.
Afternoon, Chair. My name is Sandis Utwabe. I'm the CFO of Westgrow.
Good afternoon, Khadija Daris, Chief of Staff at Westgrow.
Good afternoon, Shamal Smith, Head of Monitoring and Evaluation at Westgrow.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. Neville Maikey, the Acting CEO of Freeport Saldanha.
Good afternoon, Chair. Herman Booniskans, the CFO for Freeport Saldanha.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Solly Martinez. I'm Company Secretary and Legal Advisor for Saldanha Bay IDC.
Good afternoon, everybody. Erich Loubser, Financial Accountant, Freeport Saldanha.
Afternoon, everyone. Dale Paulse, Freeport Saldanha.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cheryl Julius, Department of Economic Development and Tourism.
I'm just going to ask the AG also, is there people that side that must, I think there's one lady that didn't introduce herself at the back there or not? Yeah. Just for the record purposes, we take your names.
Hi, I'm Petro van Jaarsveld, Assistant Administrative Secretary, Minister Meyer's office.
Good afternoon, Marty Carsons, Strategic Coordination, Department of Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you to the AG and Audit Committee.
Good afternoon, members.
Atlantis still. We've got 3 entities.
Sorry, go.
And skip us when it comes to questions, Chair.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Matt Callanan, CEO of the Atlantis Special Economic Zone.
Good afternoon. My name is Wahida Saib. I'm the CFO of the Atlantis SEZ.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Friedline Williams, and I'm the company secretary at the ACZ.
That's all done on this side. Over to you, Audit Committee and AG.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Comfort Bunting, Audit Committee Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. I'm Annalise Years. I'm an Audit Committee member of the Department of Economic Development and Tourism.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members, including colleagues from the department entities. The name is Lutando Mehlimakulu, responsible for economic development as well as Atlantis.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. I'm Tsepo Mohlomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sebulon Africa, Engagement Manager responsible for Wesgro Audit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm President Whaley, Engagement Manager for Saldanha Bay IDZ.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. My name is Sazin Ndwandwa, Chairperson of the Audit Committee, Wesgro.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. Paul Slack, Chairperson of the Audit Committee of the IDZ and representing the Chairperson of the Audit Committee of Atlantis SEZ.
Thank you. There's nobody online that needs introduction. Okay, that's fine. There's nobody there. Thank you very much for all the introductions. We're gonna do the department first. Then we've got Wesgro, Saldanha Bay, and then Atlantis. Like our custom, we have 2 questions per member and 2 questions per member, and then follow up after that. I'm asking everybody again to work through the chair and not dialogue. So let's give the HOD opportunity with opening remarks, and then we will go immediately to part C, 151 to 166. We'll do it in parts, and then E, and then F. After every section, there will then be opportunity for members to ask questions. So HOD, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair and honourable members. I'd like to say we're very proud of the annual report and the financials that has been submitted and tabled by the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. We have consistently over the last decade or so had a clean audit. This was not easy. It's consistently making sure that there's hard work in making sure that we are compliant and adhere to the legislation and the regulations that are issued by National Treasury. And I think over the last 8 or so years, there have been 145 directives that have been issued by National Treasury. So it's constantly changing playing field, and we are making sure that we are compliant and operate within the confines of the law to make sure that we spend taxpayers' money wisely and make sure that we actually deliver on our strategy. So I'd like to commend the team at DDAT, and particularly the CFO and her team, that despite capacity challenges that we have worked tirelessly and consistently and really hard to make sure that we've had this clean audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. We're going to governance. We're going to governance, and we are going to take questions from page 151 to 166. Member Van Wyk and then Member Lekker. Member Van Wyk, you first.
Thanks, Jay. Yes, I'm looking at the risks considered and addressed during the year, and perhaps just trying to get a little bit of a feel there of where we are now. And I'm really talking across all 4 entities, so no need to repeat again. Saying to myself, we've got some big targets that we need to meet. In shooting for the stars, in trying to get to that R1 trillion economy, the whole G for the J project. And we also know that we're saying we've got to get to economic growth, we've got to get to jobs, in other words, employment. And then we've got to have sufficient education to be able to get to those levels for our citizens. And then, I look through the risks that we have, and then I say to myself, are we really meeting in all the risks that we're looking, some of those objectives? Because I think they're on the one side, Harvard Growth Lab has come out and spoken Metroverse and saying, how do we analyze economies and our local economies and drilling down to be able to activate what is taking place within those local economies? Because we often talk about, no, we don't worry about the local municipalities, we just worry about district municipalities. And to me, if you're worrying about district municipalities, you're looking at an aerial picture of an industrial estate without going to look at the factories, which are the local municipalities. And then I say, how do our risks and our consideration of the risks measure up on that? And I was with some senior business people just last week, and once again, the whole issue of red tape and the restrictions and the hurdles that don't seem to be removed in what we're dealing with. Now, I know that your answer will probably say, give us more money, but I think it is part of this whole issue. I think you've done very well with and you are doing very well with what you have, but I think this is the one area where we really need to look at how do we push further.
Maleka?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, reading on page 154 under key risks considered, I think it's important to mention that I was hoping that I will find something about extortion, because extortion is a significant challenge that is impacting on businesses across the poor working class. And therefore, Chair, I want to understand, why is this not mentioned as a risk? Secondly, does this information provided for by the department suggest that the department is not actively involved in mitigating the safety concerns around businesses? Because not only is extortion, but also business people are being kidnapped and ransom is asked by these people. So what exactly is the department doing in attending to that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If I can just add mine, and I know it's just not DDAT, it's maybe more than DDAT, because key risks considered and addressed during the year, citizens not able to access economic opportunities and employment. But if you read it, you see it's a mismatch, and so it's not your responsibility. But my question there is, are you engaging with other departments, and what is the plan? Because this is not a new problem, and I don't think it's your problem alone. So if you can maybe just elaborate. There's a lot of, I don't want to go through them all, but also building constraints and government, the red tape. If you can, I'm not going to talk about the others, but I just thought that one you need to speak to, broader to, is there what workshop or whatever, and who you're speaking to when it comes to that, because that is a major problem in when you get to the townships. I'm not going to go through the others if you want to comment, but I also don't want to go through all of them. HOD, if you can answer and maybe ask whoever need to assist you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. With respect to the risks, Honourable Member van Wyk, it is a hard task, and we have actually collaborated. Well, we had Professor Ricardo Hausman, who heads up the Harvard Growth Lab, do a bit of an analysis on the G4J strategy. And this is shortly after they released their latest diagnostic on South Africa on the key binding constraints, where an entire chapter was dedicated to the municipalities and what are the challenges facing the municipalities. And essentially where there was legislation or competencies provided and mandates provided to the municipalities without necessarily the resources flowing with those additional obligations. So Professor Hausen, you may be happy to know, has fully endorsed the Growth for Jobs strategy. He was incredibly supportive because there was quite a lot of alignment between his diagnostic and the Growth for Jobs strategies diagnostic analysis and also the way forward. What we have done is in part because of the information contained in the Harvard Growth Lab, but also what sits in the G4J, is we've emphasized the spatial, because I think part of the challenge we have is that there's a lot of work being done in the municipalities, but they tend not necessarily to be coordinated. And so through that, there's missing gaps that forms, and there could have been potential synergies, would have strengthened and enhanced various interventions, but it isn't. So in going forward, and particularly in our 5-year plan, you would see a much greater emphasis on spatial, which incorporates sort of strategic planning, investment, exports, SME development, townships, and skills development, because all our programs are busy, but they are not necessarily fully coordinated and, to be frank, capacitated, because municipalities require additional capacity, and at the moment we don't have that. We're hoping with our organogram going forward that that's something that we are able to address. With regards to the red tape, it is, yes, we would like some more money, please. But it's also about how we do things. So at the moment, we have an incredibly efficient red tape unit that responds to all of the reactive inquiries, has an incredible turnaround time and a very high customer satisfaction rate in terms of the resolutions. What the team has been doing, and the shift has happened over the last couple of years, is actually saying, okay, what are the systemic issues that we need to address that doesn't only help that specific business that has a problem, with example, around building plans, but actually is about looking at the legislation and saying, what can we do to resolve it? How do we improve the processes? Within the municipality? How do we shift the attitude from being sort of very bureaucratic to a red carpet kind of attitude where municipal officials actually see that helping businesses and around the business plans still very compliantly is actually going to help create jobs. So it's not just doing one or two things. It's a culture shift that the unit is also starting to drive through tools like lean management, PDIA, which again is a Harvard linked sort of methodology around how do you actually have action-based plans to resolve key binding constraints. So it's not just about more money, it's also about about capacity, but also a shift in how we do things. And hopefully in the 5-year going forward, once you have seen it and we finalized it, once we finalize it and then you see it, you'd be able to see that shift in the way that we do things. It's all about balance. Doesn't mean that we're going to stop providing the direct support through to businesses, but we need to complement that with more systemic interventions as well. There is a key concern as we're moving forward in the development of the township strategy. We are understanding that, like ports would be the key binding constraint for exporters, extortion and crime is the key binding constraint for businesses in townships, be they formal or informal. We have actually highlighted the links in the G4J strategy. It never ever quite made it into the final strategy, but we've identified and we have an annexure that identifies all the key issues that impact on the township the townships, including crime. And you'd be interested to know the last 6 months where we've been developing, co-developing or inputting into the provincial strategic plan that VIP's safety is still very important, and we've provided input into shaping what their plans are in going forward. And so we are hoping certainly that the needs of the economy, the needs of businesses in the township would be reflected in the safety VIP going forward. So we've provided that input, and we've no doubt that in the implementation there will be collaboration. It's not our area of necessarily of expertise, but so we're going to be very dependent on POCs and those departments that are actually driving and coordinating. But we will lend our support, our information, our intelligence, our data, and where necessary, our networks to be able to improve the perception of crime or reduce crime for business again and against businesses. Thank you, Chair. Okay, I think we answered all of the questions. Is there anything that my colleagues would like to add? John?
Okay, thank you. Members, have follow-ups? Can we move? Member Lecker?
Thank you, Chair. Again, on page 154, the last bullet that talks to citizens not able to access economic opportunities. I think this is a risk that is a present reality in the province, where there's a significant amount of people who are unemployed, predominantly Black people. And I want to ask, Chair, with that, why there are no targets in terms of intervening specifically for the youth in these areas or regions that are surrounding us in the province, because clearly unemployment is contributing to the rise of crime. So why is there no targets that talks to that, Chair?
Thank you very much, HOD.
Okay, I think I might have skipped the one question that you did ask about skills. So I'm going to ask Nizam Joseph to please respond. He has been actively working on the skills, but also in terms of making sure that the employment opportunities, the economic opportunities are spread across the province and not necessarily concentrated in the metro. But I'll let him speak to it. Nizam?
Thank you for the question. So from a skills perspective, our targets is employment creation. So we do about just over 4,000 beneficiaries every year. We provide experiential learning to these individuals with accredited skills programs. It's either CETA accredited or vendor accredited qualifications like a Microsoft or facsimile. And more than 80% of the young unemployed individuals that goes through our programs find full-time employment. I think it's slightly over 80% or so. From a geographical spread perspective, 70% of the economic activity in the province does rest inside the metro. So the bulk then naturally of our individuals would be from the metro. With respect to the spatial source of these young unemployed adults, they're mainly from areas like Khayelitsha, Mitchell's Plain, Delft, Nyanga. The single largest sector that employs would be the BPO sector. We have seen a sector that's been growing. One of the fastest growing sectors is obviously the last mile delivery. And as you may well know, that sector has been dominated by foreigners. We are working with the sector in this very rapidly growth sector to source more South Africans, young South Africans in that particular sector. We go as far as the Southern Cape, where we work with hospitality companies, artisanal development companies, and then provide experiential learning and then full-time employment across the province. Thank you.
So if I may just add, there is a specific target in the indicators, the non-financial indicators, performance indicators. Last this past financial year. I think they targeted 2,700. They overachieved, and so they reached 4,260. I think the key thing for the overperformance is the ability for the department to leverage funding from other sources. So it basically shows up and allows us to actually increase. So that's outside of our control. What's in our control is what's sitting in our budget. And so the idea is that we basically try and leverage and pool from other sources of funding to increase the reach and remit of what we are able to do. So that's the first thing. And I think the unique thing about the programs that particularly Nizam and his tiny team do is that we involve private sector. So when we talk about the skills mismatch, it's private sector identifying what their requirements are, and what Nizam and his team does is try to facilitate access to those needs that potentially could fulfill, and then ensure that they get the training in-house for them to be able to be employed. So it's demand-led, in other words, as opposed to supply-driven.
Lekker, follow up.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the responses that are coming forward from the department. But I want to check, Chairperson, in terms of, yes, we are hearing that there are employment opportunities created for young people to an extent that some of them are getting a permanent employment. But then I want to get an understanding, besides employment, is there an appetite to create an enabling environment for businesses so that they can be empowered, especially the small businesses or the entrepreneurs? Because I know in the township there's a lot of people who've got skills and capacity, but they don't get enough support. Hence, you see foreign nationals opening spaza shops everywhere or taking over spaza shops from our own people because there's no sufficient or support at all. So is there a thinking and appetite in ensuring such an environment is created? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, HOD.
Absolutely, but I'll ask Nizam to provide the details.
Sorry, I'm going to tag team with John Peters next to me, member. So from a systemic perspective, yes, we look at those sectors that's growing, that has the capacity to absorb. We work with those sectors and understand what they require, develop bespoke programs for them so that we can, these young kids can take up those positions. But it's also important to note that from systemically, we're looking at changing the ecosystem so that the ecosystem, we only get involved if there's a clear market failure that the ecosystem is not dealing with. We don't have an education mandate. We don't necessarily have a direct skills mandate. So when we recognize that there's a gap that's not being filled by anyone, that's when we'll get involved. So we know that we have a curriculum challenge. So even those occupations in high demand that can be filled is not being filled. 42% of companies are saying that they can grow, but they're not growing because they can't find the skills. And when they say they can't find the skills, it's a plethora of characteristics that brings that about. It's either someone who doesn't have experience, someone who doesn't have the necessary behavioral traits, someone that doesn't have a qualification, someone that does not have the accreditation, and. So when a company says we're going to grow, like 42% of companies say we can't find the skills, we will work with those companies and developing instruments. Now, when we develop those instruments where we directly find individuals, train them up and give them to a company, it's very, very expensive for the department. An artisan costs 216,000 Rand. And then the stipend, because it's an artisan, is up to 8,000 Rand a month. And you have to pay that up for 4 years to develop an artisan. So it's key that we have to find this money elsewhere because the department doesn't have the funds. But the challenge there is that we get involved because the academic instrument is not appropriate for what companies require. So we work with companies, we work with the industry, both on the supply side and the demand side, to develop those instruments, both in terms of content and the modality of that instrument, so that when the kids go through a TVET or a college or university, they are better suited for that particular role. So, and that's what we're doing on the ecosystem. So it is an indictment. We hear on the TVET colleges side that the unemployment rate there is exceptionally high. Kids coming out of TVET colleges. So we have to work with the TVET college, but it exists elsewhere. With respect to addressing some of the entrepreneurship support in the ecosystem, I'm going to hand over to John Peters, but he will also talk to you about the work that we're doing with the CETAs that has the funding and how we're collaborating with the TVET colleges to bring about a better entrepreneurial spirit at the TVET colleges. John?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'll just try and be succinct. Just looking at entrepreneurship as a pathway to people that are disadvantaged or looking for opportunities beside employment, and we have to be real about it. So with regard to entrepreneurship development or enterprise development, there's about 4 areas I want to cover. The first one is the flagship program that we have called the Booster Program. And that's a partnership program with organizations within the ecosystem that are actually busy with support to businesses. Okay, so you'd find, example, the R Labs in the Mitchells Plain area, Silulu, which is in Kailicha, and are also very much in the Noon. So those are the types of organizations that we support in partnership to develop SMMEs. And typically the SMMEs range from your basic startup sort of ideas, type of business, still have it in your mind to a point where you actually an existing business that actually want to grow. So we have that array of support for SMMEs. Of about, I want to call it about 8 initiatives that we had last year, we probably had about 5 or 6 of those initiatives that were actually done in the township areas. So that's the one thing, through the Booster Fund, through a partnership approach, right? With that also, we're looking at enriching the ecosystem. So it's not only about supporting these organizations, but it's also making the ecosystem a lot more vibrant. The second one is where we're working with municipalities, and in this case, I mean, just yesterday I was sitting with the City of Cape Town to look at the informal trading bylaws and how those can be seen not only as not as constraints, but as empowering. So there's that sort of area, call it systemic, that's affect a raft of entrepreneurs. Then thirdly, we're hosting tomorrow with DSBD on the National Department's Township Revitalization Program, where we're looking at a generic strategy and a set of, I want to call it incentives or policy measures that will actually support businesses in the township areas, right? Key to those things are the constraints that we speak about here: access to finance, access to skills, crime and extortion. Those are the things that we're going to focus on tomorrow. And then Nizam mentioned the last one is the TVET and the CETAs. And what we're looking at there is that typically in your TVET colleges, there's a rich pool of potential entrepreneurs in the form of plumbers, in mechanics, and all those types of trades. So what we try and do there is work with the CETAs and with the TVET colleges, where most of them got now sort of entrepreneurship colleges or entrepreneurship components bolted on, work with them to develop these kids who finish their qualifications or come back after they decided they've worked, they want to start their own business, to actually build up that pool. So in essence, then we've got that 4 areas. The one is the Booster Fund, where we're very much involved in the township. I would say 60 to 70% of our activities are there. Secondly, looking at the bylaws, especially informal trading bylaws. The third one then is the Township Revitalization Program, which we're working with DSBD National Department. And then the last component is the TVET and the CETAs, where we're working with the young people that are attached to the TVET colleges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's quite a comprehensive answer. Thank you. Member Lecker?
I'll raise my other concern on recommendations, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Let's move on. Let's move to part E, 209 to 220. Now you got all of that. Let me just throw in the 30. Can I throw in the 30 first? This was now my speciality, the 30 days. Page 218, you have invoices paid after 30 days or agreed period. But we were also briefed by the Auditor General to say that management's debt management processes did not sufficiently ensure that creditors are paid within the 30-day period required. And then they also highlight inadequate tracking and also monitored and timelessly presented to the finance. This is extremely processing. And also system errors. System errors, they pointed out. I know that there is some steps taken into that direction, but if you can just give us some explanation on the findings here of the Auditor General. Member Lekker, I'm going to leave the others to you. You're good in the others. Go quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Page 210 on irregular expenditure. Can the department provide details on these cases as far as irregular expenditure is concerned, but also which supply chain management process were not complied with? Then 213, under fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Item A there speaks of reconciliation of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Can we get details, Chair, on the Provincial Forensic Services investigation onto this matter? I think it's a 2022-2023 matter. Can I also throw another one? Or I'll wait for another. 214. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure monies that were written off. Why was that written off? I think it's a figure of 63 something. Why was it written off?
Thank you.
I'll come back again.
Yeah, thank you, Member Van Wyk. Did you have questions on that, Member Van Wyk? You didn't. You're fine. Okay, Member Lekker, go ahead, because there's only a few questions in this section.
Thank you, Chair. The other question, Chair, is around the details of a previous year disciplinary action taken as a result of fruitless expenditure. And that is on page 214. What was the outcome of that disciplinary process? And then the debts written off on 217. Why are these debts written off? Thank you, Chair.
Member Peters, you end up.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you. Chairperson, I just want to know whether there was irregular expenditure condoned, and if so, what was the reason for that?
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. That deals, we're going to give the department, if there's follow-ups, you can do it, but then if there's no follow-ups, we're done with E. But HOD, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for those questions. I'm going to ask our CFO to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD. I think maybe to start off with the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because the questions related to the fruitless and wasteful expenditures all linked to the three different questions that the member asked. So perhaps maybe to start off with, the fruitless and wasteful expenditure refers to a case of a prior year. It's where we had a fraudulent salary, double payment on a salary done by another department, the Department of the Premier. And the reason why we had to get SAPS involved is because it was a fraudulent case. Obviously, at that point, the matter was written off because the funds could not be recovered, and the matter was then written off. So the fruitless and wasteful expenditure was written off because the funds could not have been recovered. With regard to the disciplinary process, because the disciplinary process was done by the Department of the Premier, we're not privy to the outcome. It would be something that is kept confidential. But as part of your fruitless and wasteful expenditure write-off, there must be a disciplinary process that is undertaken. So it does refer to a prior year, and it's not the case didn't occur within the department, but in another department. I think with regard to the irregular expenditure, it's also related to a few questions in terms of the irregular expenditure. Why was it condoned? What was the irregular expenditure about? So the irregular expenditure, there's a few. The one that relates to the big amount of 1440 relates to a case within the department where the transaction that was followed was not a transaction that was aligned to our procurement process. The matter was investigated, and with the delegations in that year, the condonement for irregular expenditure resides with your provincial treasury. There's a condonation committee. They look at whether there's any losses in terms of irregular expenditure. The department needs to write to them to ask them to condone the irregular expenditure. So based on our initial investigation and our value for money assessment, although the regulation was not followed, we found that the services were still rendered. So in that case, specifically, it related to training that was undertaken, but not through the proper processes, but the actual service to the learners the unemployed people that was trained. We actually found that value for money was attained, and Provincial Treasury then, or the Condonement Committee then agreed with us, and that irregular expenditure was condoned for the department. The other irregular expenditure relates to irregular expenditure that has been picked up by the Auditor General as well as our internal control unit. And with regard to those irregular expenditure, that relates to a supply chain management non-compliance matter. It's where supply chain management process was followed, but there wasn't 3 quotations obtained for that specific process. Again, the matter will be investigated, and if there is consequence management in terms of staff that does not adhere to regulations, there will be certain consequence management processes or disciplinary processes that we would undergo in terms of that area. With regard to the question around the losses, so the losses comprises of quite a few areas. So starting off with assets, so there's quite a few laptops that we've had to write off in terms of losses. But all our losses, we've got a loss control policy. It's all losses that is based on the losses actually as what do you call it? It's older than 5 years. It's also gone through a state attorney where we've actually written to the state attorney. We've asked for responses in terms of whether we can write off, whether we should be holding anybody negligent, etc. So it follows quite a big loss control process. And then we've also got some bad debts in terms of staff that has resigned, etc. And then there's 2 GG vehicles, 2 cases in terms of GG vehicles, so accidents where the staff member was not found negligent or the accident wasn't their fault. We'd write off those. And then we've got one old COVID case where a service provider was not able to deliver on a specific service due to the circumstances around COVID. Again, we go through a whole legal process, and there was a small amount that was written off in terms of that service provider specifically. And then with regard to the 30 days. So the 30 days, I mean, maybe to start off with, I think the actual invoices paid after 30 days, it's about 0.3%. Not that I think 30 days is acceptable in any way, but it is a small percentage in terms of the department's full population in terms of the 30 days. The key reasons in terms of that has been due to other systems. So we work on a logo system. So it's where there were system closures and we weren't able to process some of those payments. It's also related to situations where invoices were submitted late due to staff not understanding the payment timelines. So sometimes it is a little bit more complicated to actually understand how the 30 days get calculated, and these assumptions that is made that when an invoice is dropped off by the finance unit, that's when the date gets calculated. So maybe there's a few reasons in terms of that. I think the more important thing for us is what have we done or what are we putting in place to mitigate that? So from a financial management perspective, I think the HOD specifically has taken it to our top management meeting. We have asked each of the line units to actually have a tracking system in place now to actually monitor that. We've developed quite a detailed training module that we've rolled out, and it's a online training module that we've rolled out just so that there's a better reach, but also from our side trying to create a lot more awareness and training, because a lot of these things are normally as a result of people or staff just not understanding how 30 days gets calculated. So I think we're focusing a lot on our economic development. 30 days is very important for us. Our average payment turnaround time is about between 15 and 17 days. So this is really it doesn't normally happen within our department. So it's the exceptions for us. And we are doing a lot in terms of ensuring that we mitigate it and not that this doesn't occur in future. Thank you.
Member Lecker?
Thank you, Chair. Look, we've always been hearing that there are instances where funds have been written off. And one of the reasons is that the official could not get re-quotation. So I want to ask Chair, is there no policy that talks to when should there be 3 quotations sought before a payment can be authorized? Because it's not the first time that we're hearing this response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No, I just want to comment on the 30 days. I just wanted to see, the mitigation. So very happy because it's been a problem with most of the departments, and the biggest problem is we looked at other departments and we're asking, is it fair if I submit the invoice to you, I don't put the banking details there, but we calculate it from day one? Things like that. So I think you're busy sorting that type of things out. When do you actually start with the 30 days? And I think your explanations, other departments did not have explanations, so this is quite adequate. And then also, we also look at, when you look at companies, are they sustainable if you don't pay them in time? So I think you got that. So, but it's a trend that we picked up through all. This is our last scope session with you're the last department. So we have, we have the view and we've just made the recommendations. But like you say, staff need to understand when do you start with 30 days, and sometimes you pay it, like you say, 15 to 17 days, but sometimes you pay in 31 to 32 days, but it's a bad reflection. We can ask the questions, but members of the public don't ask the questions. This is a public document. But thank you for that answer. Maybe if Member Lecker's questions just can be addressed. Thank you.
I think maybe we're speaking about 2 different things. So the procurement process in terms of the 3 quotation has nothing to do with the losses. So the less than 3 quotation relates to the irregular expenditure. It will not be written off. That's irregular expenditure. Any staff member that is guilty of irregular expenditure will go through a disciplinary process, but there's no losses that gets occurred within that area. With regard to the losses, that is losses in terms of theft, in terms of damages to vehicles, in terms of salary overpayments, that is we specifically with our interns, where it's difficult to actually get them to repay. So I think it's 2 different processes that we are talking to, but I think maybe just to give the member comfort that we, from a regular expenditure process, there's no losses that gets incurred. And if there is a loss, so based on our value for money assessment, let's say there is a potential loss, then there's an expectation on the staff member that has been guilty of the irregular expenditure to then repay the loss that gets determined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move on, members? We're going to part F. Is there questions for part F, members? Member Lecker?
Page 243, Chair. I would like to request the department to probably explain the reasons for the decrease in assets under cash flow from financing managers activities. 243, 243.
242,
3.
243.
And also, Chair, I see there's an increase in catering and traveling. Is this as a result of the cost of living or why?
Thank you. I don't know where, I don't know your binding of your book. I can't find my pages. Pages all loose. But are you talking about the foreign, and are you talking about the foreign and local travel? Are you talking about that? What you
First one is on cash flows from financing activities. That's 243.
We got that.
The second one is on goods and services, 256.
Yes. Yeah. Of goods and services, you say?
Yes.
And then you have one on catering as well?
Yes.
The increase on catering?
Travel and subsistence.
And travel and subsistence, travel and subsistence. I know the travel and subsistence is because of the jobs, but I'm going to leave it over to the department. Member Van Wyk?
Yeah, just a simple one right at the back there, and the annexures now also on my loose pages of advances and so forth. Just wanting to know what that was. I assume it's some other projects that you're busy with. They're around about 294, probably starting about 291, annexure 7. Just to know what that's what that is relates to. Long lists of advances and B-main. It's obviously just a disclosure item.
Thank you very much, HOD.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to again ask my CFO to provide a response, but I think particularly around the catering and the traveling. We must remember that 22-23, we were still experiencing COVID, and so there was a dramatic drop in the kind of the officials going out into the public and hosting events because we were still in then, I think at that time, COVID. So we were quite cautious. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we were in the process of doing quite a bit of consultation in the development of the G4J strategy. So we've been going out into the districts. And so you essentially see an uptick because of the consultation and because essentially the aftermath of the development of our Growth for Jobs strategy. But the CFO is welcome to add and then address all the other questions, please.
Peter, you need to just put your record. Okay, Chair, again, maybe starting from the back, because I think there's a lot of questions. So the Annexure 7, in terms of the analysis of prepayments and advances, I think that's an easy one. That's just the advances itself relates to, Nizam did a very nice explanation of the skills program. So within the skills program, we pay company stipends as part of our BPO sector program, our artisan development program, etc. So what you're seeing coming through in terms of Annexure 7 is the advances that we pay to these companies, and it's based on the fact that we need to ensure that these companies have got cash flow. So we provide them in the last month, because it's the end of the financial year, we provide them then with an advance because our payment cutoff is early in March, and we generally then provide these companies advances. It gets reconciled in the year thereafter. Then I think with regard to the member's question in terms of the goods and services items, which is, I think was the question on page 256. Which relates to catering and in travel and subsistence. We do provide the explanation in the bottom, in the table in below the goods and services area, but just also then to kind of to highlight it. With regard to catering, I think when we started off, I actually explained we've got a new strategy, growth for jobs. And last year, we spent a lot of time communicating the strategy, specifically through to businesses, municipalities, etc. So a lot of the catering is related to that, but then at the same time, the travel as well. So travel in terms of the municipalities, etc. But then also a lot of our programs, we do a lot of site visits. So we need to go and check whether the programs are actually delivering. So our booster program, and again, it's across the province, as well as the skills program in terms of the monitoring and evaluation processes. Oh, okay. The cash flow from financing activities, I think was it a question around the decrease in net assets? Okay, so that's just a movement in the statement of financial position which relates to recoverable revenue. So it's the cash flow item movement relating to our recoverable revenue. It's a bit difficult to explain, but it's a cash flow item.
Thank you. Follow-ups on that? Yes, go. Put your microphone on.
It's the recovery for revenue, recovery from when, from what, or of what? What?
Are you able to answer that? Are you clear? COO? Member van Wyk?
I think, Chair, unfortunately, cash flow statements are very accounting technical, which indicate the movement from one year to another year. And it becomes quite a technical exercise. In the days when I started as an accountant, we had a more relevant cash flow analysis than we have these days, because now it is a very technical exercise.
Member Lekker? You're going to leave it there? That's our CA on our team speaking.
Chair, because
yes, go.
I'm worried if I'm going to ask for such, I will still won't be able to interpret it. So it's better for me to get at least an explanation to it. I'm sure the official is capable enough to reduce it to my knowledge.
Okay, no problem. We'll just page 256, training and development. There's a decrease in that budget. If you can explain that decrease in that budget, we should train more and develop more, not less. So if you just give me a decrease answer on that, maybe you have a good answer on that. Thank you very much. And consultants is also a decrease. Consultants on note 5, it's consultants, business and advisory services. Thank you, HOD.
Okay, so sorry, Chair, I was slightly. Can I just maybe respond to member?
Oh, please do
Rita?
that. Please do that.
So what we will do is we'll provide a written sort of note and explanation that explains the decrease in the assets. So that's the first thing, and then I'm going to again ask CFO to maybe add, but the decrease in the consultants is primarily because we were in the midst of the load shedding crisis. What happened was the prioritization of the crisis was essentially led by the Premier, and there was a number of staff seconded, and that impacted also on the budgets. And so particularly around the green economy ecosystem, because we had no capacity, we essentially shifted the budget to another department that had a little bit of capacity to hold it for a while. So that's why the decrease was not because the services and the budget was essentially temporarily shifted to another department. But the bursaries, I think, if Memuna can just explain the increase.
Yes, I will, but maybe just to actually also answer the question around the recoverable revenue. So I think if we look on page 242, you'll actually see how the reconciliation is coming through in terms of the recoverable revenue specifically. So based on our debts that we recovered, which is included in our departmental revenue. So that also helps in terms of just getting an understanding of the reconciliation. So that's why I think if we go into our departmental revenue, we'll be able to see what is sitting within our departmental revenue as well, just to kind of get you. So I think the member's very correct. It's a very technical answer that brings it right down to the reconciliation in terms of the reduction. But we are able to provide the member with more detail. But the actual recoverable revenue recon is sitting on page 242. Okay. So maybe just the question in terms of the consultants, I think that's the easiest one. That relates to this last year, specifically the Premier had actually centralized the energy area, which was a priority area in terms of the Department of the Premier. And our energy unit moved out in terms of the Department of the Premier as well as Department of Infrastructure. And with that move, the budget reduction in terms of energy consultants occurred within the 23-24 financial year. With regard to bursaries, okay. The bursaries is based on the demand. So every year the department would put through an application process for staff, and based on whatever the demand is against a budget that we allowed, bursaries are approved. So last year we just had a higher demand for bursaries.
Members, any questions on part F for the department?
Yes,
I think that's
Chairperson.
it. Yes, Member Petrus.
Chairperson, on that point that you raised about the consultants, what work did they perform, Chairperson, and are they still on the books of the department?
So they're not on the books of the department. We shifted the budget, and the receiving department then went through a procurement process and recruited service providers to provide the service. That shift in funding was temporary, and we're expecting that in 26-27, the budget that we had normally allocated would then be returned to our department because we are expecting our capacity to also return. So the procurement process is transparent as far as I'm aware in the other department, and the consultants are not sitting on our books, nor is the budget. Thank you.
Can I just, I just saw this now, 129, it's loss of foreign exchange. What is that? On page 129, loss of foreign exchange, if you can just explain that for me, please. Is it 129? No. What is that? No. Just check. Is it? No, it's working. No, it's fine. It's yeah. No, it's not. We'll get members. Is that the end of the department? Thank you very much. We're going over to Westgrow. Thank you. They can stay where they are. If you're going to stay, then I mean HOD, you'll stay. So let's just do Westgrow and thank you. If let me just get my notes here. We are going to do Westgrow Part C, Part E, and Part F, 89 to 104. And Westgrow, we have the chairperson here and the CEO, chairperson and CEO. If you want to do some opening remarks, then you can do so. HOD, when you want to comment. HOD, when you want to comment, you can comment on these ones. We're doing Westgrow, but we can give the chairperson and the CEO opportunity just to do opening remarks, and members then will go for questions. Thank you. Okay, we're just going to give them opportunity to leave. Can you move closer then? Because these open benches here, I didn't know they're all going to leave. Dr. Zinn, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Chair, thank you very much. Honourable members, thanks to you and our Minister, Dr. Ivan Meyer, a huge thank you. It's a really great opportunity to address you here today as Chairperson of Wesgro. I'm honoured to present our annual report to you and engage with you on the company's performance and its continued efforts to contribute to the provincial economy. We know that we live in lots of global uncertainty in times of geopolitical tension, but Wesgro is operating increasingly in challenging times and continues to adapt and respond to the evolving situation out there. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, Chair. We're going to take the questions and try to respond to that. But I just do want to say from a provincial perspective, the Western Cape remains of interest to a number of global economies and global companies rather, in the renewable energy, software and IT and tech sectors in particular. And this is complemented by an enabling innovative administration and a firm commitment at all levels of leadership to create the environment for inclusive and sustainable growth. As the Western Cape's official trade and investment promotion agency, Wesgro is committed to driving inclusive and sustainable economic growth to create jobs and promote Cape Town and the Western Cape to be a globally competitive regional economy. There are a number of elements that have been identified and outlined and set out in the annual report, and we are very pleased that we have achieved a clean audit opinion for 2023-2024. So as we look ahead, the agency is firmly committed to the Western Cape, the government growth for jobs strategy, and the overarching objective of which is to facilitate and enable a 1 trillion provincial economy by 2035. I'd like to thank our team here, Chair, and as well as the dedication and service of the board, the Wesgro team, under the capable leadership of Ronald Stander here, our CEO, and for all that has been achieved over the past year, and the incredible partnerships and collaboration we have with various stakeholders alongside of us here today. We're also excited that we moved to a new premises in July 2024, providing better working environment for our staff and fit for purpose environment for our stakeholders and clients that we engage with. So just so that you know, we remain dedicated to continuing to improve our governance practices, delivering success across our mandates, being digitally enabled, and continuing to be stakeholder facing to ensure value to all our stakeholders. And with that, Chair, I'd like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to address everyone here today. And I will hand over to you and the rest of the team to comment or ask any questions about the annual report. Thank you.
Oh, you want to say something?
Chair, I'll maybe just add one or two things. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the period under review has really been it's been a process to change the culture and to embed the fact that there is the opportunity for compliance and performance. And so I think that what you will see from the performance over the last period is that we were both compliant and we performed. So I think that has been, the journey is started in 21-22 when we got a qualified audit, and I think we've systematically improved. Obviously, as the chair's indicated, we got a clean audit in the last financial year with no findings on supply chain. So I think that is quite significant. And then apart from that, there's been a big focus on being future fit. And we spoke about that earlier today. I won't bore you with all of those details. So thank you very much.
Members' questions. We're going to go from page 89 to 104. Member Lecker, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'm looking at the board charter. I think it's on page 91. And I see that there's quite a number of people appointed. If I remember quite well, when I used to sit in the office and listen to the discussion, there was once a situation where Westgro was faced with challenges, including the resignation of some board members, including the chair, due to claims or allegations of political interference. Now, I want to check and understand what is the current situation with the organization, and how does the new board charter addresses those challenges that you previously had. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? I just wanted to look at page 100, and you got the social responsibility there, and you're talking about invested in young graduates, and then when I go to page 109, you've got a beautiful picture there of interns and so on. So if you can just maybe elaborate more on your social responsibility plans. And like I said, Westgro graduate program, financial year 22-24 on 109. But if you can just elaborate more on that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the composition of the board is set out on pages 91, 92, 93, and 94 in quite a lot of detail there. I think the matter that the member is referring to is the matter around the previous year, perhaps, and the previous board chair. You'll recall was Prof. Vigaji before my arrival here. And so I think that we have reconstituted the board according to the current charter, and that the board is now fully constituted, including the board committees. And I do believe that we have the right skills mix, demographics, as well as a huge commitment and passion for the work that we are doing. And as the chair, I'm very happy to be working with such committed board members who attend regularly, are very actively engaged, and very positive in terms of the culture that we are trying to inculcate in the organization around the importance of compliance and performance. Thank you, Chair.
You was going to answer the one on the social responsibility.
Yeah, Chair, I will take that question on corporate social responsibility. So we have the main thing is that we have a graduate program at Westgro. At the moment, we've got 17 graduate interns, and they come from a whole range of different universities. If you turn to page 109, you will see some of the graduates that are currently, in Westgro, and they are across the Westgro agency. And apart from, so they actually are, they've joined a team and they're integrated into the organization. Of the people that you see on that picture, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them have actually been absorbed into the agency. So there's a couple of things that happen. I suppose they become a pipeline also for the agency. So that is one particular program. But when it comes to corporate social responsibility, and it's not listed here, but we also run an export advancement program where we work with upcoming exporters to prepare them for the export market. We will have a much better story to tell at the next SCOPA meeting because there's been a much more concerted focus on corporate social responsibility.
Thank you very much. Members, questions? Member Lekker, say a follow-up. Go ahead, Member Lecker.
I'm sure you would understand that I would want to have a follow-up if there was an interference, particularly if it's political. Do you think members of the current board are not politically affiliated? They're just neutral persons in your department, in your organization?
Yeah. Chair, if I can.
Don't answer. Let me give you a speaking opportunity first. Otherwise, it's going to become a dialogue. So you must speak through the chair.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Yes.
So I must give you opportunity.
Yes, yes, sorry.
Okay, because otherwise that's not going to work. So now you can speak, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. I do apologize. So the board is not politically affiliated. The board is appointed by the Department of Economic Affairs and Tourism, obviously through the ministry. We have regular board meetings. We report to the board on, not to the board, to the minister on a quarterly basis, and we also provide all of our, for any information the department needs, we also provide that to the department through our board.
Thank you very much. Member Petrus.
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you. I'm making use of advisors. Chairperson, what is the role of that advisors? If yes.
Are you making use of advisors?
No, Chair. Oh, except for the legal advisor. Yes.
Except for a legal
advisor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Peters, that answer you?
Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you. Do you have questions on governance still? Can we move to part E? 111 to 118. And while we're there, there's I'll jump into the 30 days first, and then I'll give the members the other questions. You have on page 115, you have the 30-day period, and you have invoices paid after the 30-day period or agreed period 47, and then unpaid with dispute, and then you have unpaid in dispute 12.4. The question is, you don't have any explanation. If I looked at the DDAT, the department had a whole explanation. You don't have any explanation. Can you please explain? And you know, sometimes we hear departments say that it's only a small percentage. 47, 4, and 12 is for me not a small percentage. But in future, I think what you should do, you should put reasons at the bottom. And then also, can you just explain those? Do you have mitigating factors not to have this reoccurrence next year? Members, I'm going to give over to you for the others. Member Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. On page 113, point number 1, under details of current and previous year disciplinary criminal steps taken as a result of irregular expenditure. Then it says here, 2023, 2024. Consequence management relating to the 5 matters above resulted in corrective counseling, verbal warning, a written warning, and a dismissal. Now, my question therefore, Chair, would be, what are the specifics of this irregular expenditure that led to the disciplinary outcome? But also, I'm particularly interested in the cases that included or that involved dismissal and warning. Then the second one, Chair, without wasting your time, would be
all of them.
Okay, would be under fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Can you provide details of this incidents of wasteful expenditure? What are the updates available regarding these incidents? But also, can you explain? I'm not sure if it's the same thing. You will tell us the disciplinary process, including how many cases were referred to ADC. The last one on page 123, Chair, can I go there? 123, target achieved 0.00%. What is the relationship between performance targets and program expenditure, considering the no targets achieved? Thank you, Chair.
Is that all the questions on part E? If there's follow-ups, we'll allow that, but that's all the questions on part E. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to just maybe kick off. I'm going to ask the CFO to provide all of the, the granular detail. But I think that what you're seeing on page 113, I think is part of the process to establish a culture of compliance in the agency. So we had five matters, consequence management matters. There were 5 disciplinary hearings, and obviously the action there is noted. The types of matters. One matter, the one that resulted in the dismissal, also resulted in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The person planned a mission to a destination and did not follow the supply chain procedure, notwithstanding the fact that the person had followed the procedure on countless previous occasions. So, it wasn't as though, the rules were clear, the person knew what the rules were, and yet chose to, and part of the process is, part of the consequence management process is to look at the extent to which, the extent to which we're able to rehabilitate the person's behavior through the consequence management process was such that we realized we couldn't rehabilitate the person. And we had no alternative but to dismiss the person. I'm going to hand over to the CFO to perhaps go into some of the other examples.
CFO.
Thank you, Chair. The details are on page 162, but we have not yet tabled that part, Chair, so I'll just color it. It was the 2 instances that the CEO mentioned that led to the dismissal. There was also another case where employees also had a mission. They didn't follow the steps to the end, and they didn't escalate the challenges that they were experiencing for us to intervene, which is why the disciplinary process didn't arrive at a dismissal, because you could see that the employees took steps, but when they got to the later part of the process where they should have escalated their challenges, they failed to do so for management to be able to assist them with further action. So therefore, the chair of that independent disciplinary process concluded that they could be rehabilitated with just corrective measures. The other matter was an event that took place here in South Africa without following processes for an employee that understood the processes, but because of the value and because of it being the only occurrence, their first occurrence, a return warning was given to that employee. And the portion, there was a portion of 2,000 rand in that matter where that was recovered from that employee on the basis of guidance from the Provincial Treasury. All 5 matters were reported to the Provincial Treasury for condonation, and Provincial Treasury agreed to condone all the instances except for the 2,000 that they requested that be recovered from the employee. Thank you, Chair. And the CEO has highlighted the 55,000 in terms of the reasons thereof. It relates to the dismissal we spoke about. The other matters that sit there is the opening balance from the prior years. I can confirm that the recovery process, as you would see there with the 102, is well underway. And we are confident that by the end of the current financial year, the people responsible for that fruitless and wasteful expenditure would have paid what they need to pay. There's a formal installation payment agreement entered into with the party involved. Thank you.
30 days.
30 days. Chair, I think this is something that we may want to take up with National Treasury, in that National Treasury counts from the day you receive the invoice. If someone invoices you and it's the wrong invoice amount, the clock is ticking. But as a responsible government official, we can't pay invoices where there is an ongoing dispute. Sometimes the amount invoiced is incorrect, and you enter into discussions with the person to try and retract that invoice or issue a new one. That's the one alternative, or they issue a credit note. When they issue you a credit note for the disputed portion, it is only then you can pay. Sometimes those disputes take more than 30 days to resolve. The second reason behind that is that not all invoices are submitted through the finance. In terms of the purchase orders we issue to supplier, we indicate specifically the email address to which they should submit and the procedure to follow to submit invoices. If an invoice is emailed to one official who's on leave, that invoice is not then able to process, but those instances are limited. But the majority of the instances are those wherein there are disputes and we can't proceed with the payment without dispute. Chair, the reasons why most of the entities would not have provided reasons, the template came from National Treasury and it's regulated and we followed it, but I take your guidance that explanations would be useful going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe the HOD can share some of the training that they're doing in the department. You know, you can say X, Y, and Z, but there must be mitigation. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere. So I'm just saying that I know there's some red tape, but next year we don't want to see you know, no explanation and all of that, because
yeah.
The point that we are making is it's a public document. It looks bad for the entity. You know, and people don't understand. We at least have the privilege to ask questions, members of public note. So we'll do something in that. But we're going to send out because some of the departments, some of the entities got notes where they explain, some don't. So we're going to send out, you know, to all the departments, all the entities, what we require. Thank you. Members, let's move on. We're going to the part F, financial information 119 to 165. Member, I'm going to give member Peter Johnson first and then member Van Wyk. Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, congratulations to the department. You can see that this is a department that's doing a great job throughout the province. And I love that they've included a picture of the Prince Albert.
I'm just thinking, are you at the department or where's the
apologies,
I'm
the entity.
confused.
No, I am at the entity.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that they included a picture of Prince Albert, which is actually my constituency. Glad to see that we're not leaving the people of the Karoo behind. I just wanted to ask on page 129, statement of financial performance. Just in terms of the increase in the loss of foreign exchange, is that just as a result of the rand? Okay, I'm guessing it is exactly that. So thank you, Chair.
I asked that to the Department of the Foreign Exchange. I don't think they answered that one, but it's fine. Member Van Wyk.
Yes, Chair, thanks. Yeah, you know, I think I'm just talking to the entire family within economic development. Yeah. During the engagement a little bit earlier with the AG and in dealing with predetermined objectives, I made a comment, and I think these are similar comments that are coming through in most departments, where I think we should be looking at, are these PDOs relevant? Are they realistic? Are they in fact practical? And are they meeting service delivery needs out there? And are they not merely tick box exercises? Because I think we sometimes, you know, not talking about anything specific, say you attend 4 meetings a year, you know, and then one ticks that off. And then the AG sits and he says, well, okay, they've done their job. And, you know, that element of stretching. to try and look at that constant level of improvement. So I think that's sort of just a generic comment that goes across. The other one's also relatively generic. I know you've given us these very heavy documents that I've got to carry around in my backpack. I know Chair mentioned I was quite embarrassed when my pages came out. I started to fall out of the department's annual report. It's happened to the Chair as well. And I was quite embarrassed this morning going through that in Westgrow, a page is falling out as well. So I'm not sure whether they're getting value for money in a real document. And that, I think, goes across all departments as well. So those are my two initial comments.
Thank you. I don't know where to go because I'm looking for my notes. But CEO, over to you. Answer those first, and then I'll ask another round.
Chair, thank you very much. With respect to the annual reports, it's highly embarrassing. And I was pretty annoyed when I was preparing, we eventually bound it like this, and this is also falling apart. So I take the point, and we certainly are going to have to really look at the service providers that we use. So the point is well made and accepted. I'm going to ask the CFO just to answer the question on the increase in the loss in foreign exchange, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Some of the suppliers we deal with are foreign suppliers due to us hosting going on missions to countries. So that's the fluctuation in the exchange rate between the time we invoice and the time we pay. Sometimes it's a gain and sometimes it's a loss. Thank you, Chair.
If you could just maybe explain on page 148 and 149, unspent conditional grants. If we can just do that. Members, is there any other questions? So that's when we'll last on that questions, and then we're going to conclude. Thank you. CEO, the unspent conditional grants, 148 and 149.
Thank you, Chair. Westcrow had a legacy of high unspent conditional grants wherein were given a grant by the grantors, and it was not spent within the financial year in which it was given. As you would have seen, we have implemented steps as part of the audit turnaround where we focus on the effective management of those. We've been able to reduce that balance from 47 million to 10 million, and the 10 million largely relates to the office move, which is a capital expenditure where there were delays in that project. And I can confirm that that project has been finalized. We moved into the new offices on the 17th of July. And going forward, Chair, we'll manage this closely to make sure that funds are spent within the financial year in which they are received. Or we plan, if it's a multi-year project, we plan that we only draw down the portion we require for that financial year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Zinn, and CEO, if you want to do closing remarks, then we're done. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and members for the input and the feedback. We appreciate and understand that we can always improve on what we are doing, and we'll continue to pursue the improvements that have been proposed and others that might emerge as we continue into the next fiscal year. So just a huge thank you for the incredible collaboration that we have with our stakeholders here, and that we are able to achieve in the way that we are because of the partnerships and the collaboration. And Chair, just a huge thank you to you as well for chairing this meeting, and members, thank you for your input to Team Westgrow and our department here and head of department. Thank you very much for the collective efforts that enable us to achieve our goals and targets in the way that we have. A huge thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO.
Chair, just a big thank you to the committee. I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You may be excused. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. To Saldana. I'm going to give you opportunity, CEO and Chairperson, just to do introductory remarks, and then we will do part C and part F. Just over to you for introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Neville Mikey. I'm the acting CEO. Our Chairperson has extended his apologies due to an emergency that he had to respond to. Chair, we are here presenting our annual report for the year 2023-2024. In light of the importance of to become a self-sustaining special economic zone, we have pursued a number of our projects with the intent of committing those. Unfortunately, due to dependencies that are beyond our control, there has been a number of challenges that impacted on our conversion of our projects. These reasons include, but not limited to, a lot of changes within state-owned entities that are our partners, such as Transnet and TNPA, the sluggish performance of the economy, delays in adding electricity produced by IPPs into the national grid, which has exacerbated also delays in the conversion of some of our projects. Moving forward, Chair, the company is consolidating its activities and adopting new strategies to drive growth forward. The primary focus is on expanding our investor base, increasing our manufacturing capabilities, diversification of our sectors, and our value proposition. By aligning our efforts in these areas, we aim to foster business growth while contributing to our social and economic development within our region. We are maximizing our stakeholder relations, a partner to deliver model, which is what we'll be looking at, basically stretching the rand. Critical for our partners, obviously, is our shareholder in assisting us in nudging and moving some of our projects that we feel can be moved fairly quickly with the help of our head of department as well as our minister. The TNPA as our investment partner, Westgrow in our efforts to attract more investments into the zone. To ensure the company's survival and long-term sustainability, it's essential to achieve short-term and medium-term financial savings by streamlining our operations, optimizing office use, and refocusing on the core of our mandate. Additionally, we're also looking at alternative shareholding arrangements and revenue generation strategies going forward. The success of this exercise also hinges on the balancing financial austerity with the fulfillment of our strategic priorities and the company's commitments to community development. Ultimately, the restructuring is vital to restoring sustainable growth and maintaining the company's competitive edge. Thank you, Chair.
Very much. Members, questions? Just page 63, if you can just also just elaborate on your social responsibility. Page 63. There's no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just request our CFO to come in and deal with the details from a social responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Chair, as a state-owned entity, you might as well know that obviously the funding we received is for our own operations and we're not profit-driven. So the CSI that we do is more related to what we can give back to the community, not in terms of financial terms, but more services. We have established a collab in Saldanha Bay where we provide services to the local businesses where they can come have meetings free of charge. We provide the facilities. We also provide them with the equipment to do photocopies and those kind of things and provide Wi-Fi to them. And in terms of the enterprise development or the contractor development, we also provide the opportunities through our construction companies to the local businesses to obtain work there. So that's in a nutshell, Chair. And we're also in the process of beefing up our CSI policy, which will be coming into operation in the next year.
Thank you very much, members. That is part C, part F. If I can just, the Auditor General did point out a few key commitments and also spoke about your review processes within the supply chain management process were not sufficient to prevent the occurrence of non-compliance. That is what the Auditor General said. And it also review processes were not sufficient. Review processes were not sufficient to identify various non-material errors within the annual financial statements. That was just that we got from the Auditor General. And then if I can just give you a few more. Your consulting fees, 126. 126, your consulting and professional fees, if we can just elaborate on that. And then there's a marketing and advertising, there's a reduction, a remarkable reduction in that, if you can just speak about that. And then, yeah, training is also, training is also significantly less. I think I'm going to stop there. Members, do you have questions on part F of the? I'll give another round after this, but let the acting CEO just answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of our marketing and advertising, there has been a huge reduction, as you've quite correctly indicated. We have really tried to streamline in terms of our spending since the reduction of our grant. So we've had to basically do more with less. As I've indicated earlier, we are also looking at how best to partner with like agencies so that we are able to stretch the rand, hence that huge reduction in terms of our marketing and advertising. In terms of consulting fees, I'll just ask CFO to come in and he'll be able to provide the detail.
Thank you, Chair. The consultant fees varies from year to year, and it also depends on the operational requirements for that specific year. For this currently under review, it specifically relates to our economists that we appoint to help us with our economic model. It also relates to advice that we do get sometimes on accounting matters, appointing consultants for that, and also being implemented. We've implemented infrastructure, and that also needs to be maintained. And we've also acquired a consultant to give us advice on how to properly maintain our assets, because it's billions of rands in the IDZ. And Chair, that's mostly what the consultant fees relates to for this year.
Go ahead with what the AG said.
Yeah, and just on the training, Chair, I think that also is depending on the funding we received. So that's directly related. If the funding is less for training, the training spending will be less.
And I just also get the impairment property plan and equipment.
Yeah, Chair, that was, we've built a road on a servitude. We call it the Eastern Link Road that links the main road to the zone. That road, there was a servitude that we paid for, but on that servitude, a road was built, and that piece of land was expropriated by the Department of Transport and Public Works, and then part of the road plus the servitude was then transferred to the Department of Public Works.
Members, no questions? Member Van Wyk?
Yes, Chair, look, yeah, I think this is obviously a project information type of situation that we are sitting with here. And I suppose the question is, you are reliant on these grants and the extent to which National is being able to fund that. Now, I imagine you've been looking at what those scenarios are likely to be in the ongoing future, because you've got if one looks at the year under review, there's expenditure that's exceeded revenue. Fortunately, you're sitting on an element of cash, but if those grants were not to forthcome, it's probably going to, change whatever the prospects are, even in this financial year and into next financial year. So just if you've got some comments and that we can get some of that understanding from yourselves.
If I can just ask another question, note 29 on 128, continued liability. If you can just explain that, please. Note 29 on 128. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a lot of, I think the honourable member is quite correct in terms of the grants that we're receiving from the DTIC, specifically related to infrastructure and bulk services. Those are multi-year projects, so hence you see quite a number of them being indicated there. They are definitely committed in terms of the projects, because they are all project aligned. Before we get funding, we've got to make an application to the DTIC. They will then do their due diligence, and when they're quite happy with the projects that we're putting on the table, they will then provide approvals for that. In terms of note 29, I'll just ask our Solly, our legal advisor, to come in respect of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the matter relates to a service. Let me start here. We procured the services of a service provider to assist us with a social project that we ran in Saldanha. That was before COVID hit us. The project entailed face-to-face contact and interviews with the members of the Saldanha Bay community. And because of COVID, that could not happen. And through a process of engagement with the service providers, we decided that the contract be mutually terminated. And we thought that the service provider was happy with the outcome thereof. However, we then subsequently received a summons from the service provider, which we have defended. We have also tendered settlement amount to the service provider. And unfortunately, due to non-responsiveness for the service provider, the matter of settling the matter is still in abeyance. We have, with that, also applied for a date to hear the matter in the High Court. And because of the backlog with High Court matters, we haven't been allocated the trial date yet. But the purpose of enrolling the matter was also then to have the court dismiss the claim, so that we can dispense with the matter. So I hope that provides sufficient detail. Thanks.
Member Petrus.
Yes, Chairperson, that Charles Matthew building, does it belong to the institution, or are they leasing it?
Page are you on, member?
Chair, if I may, I think my colleagues indicate that it refers to the Atlantis SEZ, not to ourselves.
Member Peters, that Atlantis.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, is there any other questions? No question. Just a question, and I'm just checking now. You don't have a part E. Don't you require to have a part E in? Just give me some explanation there.
Chairperson, no, we are 3D scheduled entity, and that's not part of that. Yeah.
Makes sense for what I challenged them. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's it, members. There's no further questions. Member Lekker, you were out, you're back in. We're done with Saldanha, so we'll go over. We'll go to Member Peters with Atlantis. Thank you very much for your time and effort. We appreciate the presentation. You can do some closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. We continue to ensure that we bring in and fill the park. I think that's the most important part for us and critical. And as I've indicated, we intend and will continue to do more with less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We will go over to Atlantis Special Economic Zone. Members, we are just waiting for them to take their seats. When we're done, we're not going to have anybody to thank, or everybody has. Part C. Okay, let's just wait. Thank you very much. I'm just going to give you the opportunity to do some opening remarks, and then we'll jump right into part C, page 68 to 75.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, honourable members, colleagues. I won't say much. I just want to mention two points. Last year when we were here, we raised the point that the tax incentives for the SEZs had not been promulgated. And as the Atlantis SEZ, we were unable to access those tax, or at least the companies in the zone were unable to access the tax incentives. There was some lobbying done, I believe, also from the standing committee and perhaps SCOPA as well. And those tax incentives are now available and open to companies, not only in the Atlantis SEZ, but all the SEZs. So we think there's some lobbying there that made a difference. So that's positive news. Secondly, we also were awarded the Financial Times Financial Intelligence FDI Awards. We won for Africa. We were the winners in the Sustainable Zone category. We were also the winners in the Industrial Zone category, and we had an honourable mention in the Eco-Manufacturing category. So, Chair and honourable members, we are very positive about the future prospects for the Atlantis SEZ. We are moving along at a very solid pace, putting in the civil infrastructure, getting moving with the building of our first factories. These things do take time, but there is constant movement and constant progress. So we are very pleased with that. Just to read the first sentence from the chairperson's report in the annual report, and apologies from the chair. He unfortunately had an urgent matter to attend to, but the opening line, I think, says it. The 2023-24 annual report of the Atlantis Special Economic Zone for Green Technology reflects a remarkably positive and productive year, a successful year in the face of fiscal constraints and economic headwinds. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. Over to questions. It's part C, 68 to 75. Member Pat Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first appreciate the presence of the team on Atlantis. What is this? Atlantis SDZ. I hope, Chair, I'm not going to misrepresent my colleague. She said she has a soft spot on this particular institution, but you would obviously understand that we are not the same. We don't think the same. I want to check, Chair, since the inception of the Atlantis SEZ, how many of the SMMEs are Black owned, and what type of support or resources are given to help them so that they can succeed? Also, Chair, I want to know what is the number of companies that benefited from a preferential procurement policy, if there is any, and what is the value of those contracts awarded? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We just can also just speak about the page 74, your social infrastructure project and internship program. You can answer that on page 74. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just how many SMMEs have been supported? I think, Chair, we have a very active program of SMME support. We have a dedicated enterprise development person. If you go to page 13, there is a summary of the jobs created, and we can say that there's a total of nearly 2,500 people supported via targeted skills, SMME, and community programs. We have a range of SMME support programs that ranges from compliance, understanding how to fill in tenders, respond to tenders. We have financial literacy programs. We have programs that work with existing businesses or entrepreneurs to help them perform better. We also have specific support for construction SMMEs. We have a target of 30% of the spend on our projects allocated to construction SMMEs in Atlantis. We're on target with that. So, for example, with our current spend, a good 32% of that has been on SMMEs of a 90 million rand project. So that's a substantial amount that has been awarded. And we're still in the early days. It's a program that's evolving, but we've put in place things like a financial support program with Absa Bank. We take it very seriously, Chair. It is, we believe, the central ethos of the Atlantis SEZ is that if we're going to transition to a green economy, any definition of sustainable and green must include the word inclusion. And so for us, driving inclusion means giving members of the community the skills and the support to engage in those businesses and activities as investors land. So the help and resources, I think I've touched on. There's various training programs. There's some financial assistance packages. And we're constantly building and evolving that as we go along, as we understand the challenges. We have an elected community stakeholder network, which represents all the sectors in Atlantis, and we work very closely with that community stakeholder network in identifying where we need to target support and assistance. Number of companies who from preference procurement. Yeah, I'll ask Wahida, and then also 74. Check.
So we do have the statistics. I think it's not in here, but we can definitely provide that with you. Matt did touch on the construction project itself and that percentage. But whenever there is procurement, we do try and offer opportunities for local SMMEs to participate. We've actually structured the procurement going forward that there'll be additional points allocated for the local SMMEs.
Thank you. The social infrastructure project and internship program.
Yeah. So thank you, Chair. The social infrastructure project, and this picks out one as an example, but we have a number. So another one, for example, is a careers day that we held in the Atlantis Mall, and where we had representation from all the TVETs and universities and other training institutions, so that the kids in Atlantis could understand the kinds of further education opportunities that are available. This particular program worked with school children, and it was we have a very good working relationship with all the schools in Atlantis, and we regularly liaise with the schools and with the headmasters. This particular program was just looking at a challenge, as it were, for the children to come up with ideas around green designs and green initiatives in the schools.
We will ask in our resolutions to cover that too. We'll ask you in writing to give us further information on that. So that's fine. Members, we're going to move on to Part E. Part E is 80 to 83. I just want to say on your 30 days, you explained it nicely there, so I'm not going to touch the 30 days. There's a nice explanation there. And then it's just irregular expenditure on page 81. And that's it. Member Lekker, you saw something there? Member Lekker, go.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, page 81B, I would like to know what are the specifics of the irregular expenditure, including how it was incurred. Additionally, what remedial actions have been taken, if there are any, taking into account that there are details of the current and the previous year's expenditure. So I just want to check that. And then the very last one is information on late and or non-payment of suppliers. Oh, let me leave. That one is yours.
I've done it. I think they explained it nicely there because they were in dispute with the supplier, but they also made a note to say it was paid. So I checked that. So it was paid, so it's fine, and you had a dispute. Can you answer the irregular expenditure, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the CEO was explaining, we are so passionate about the SMMEs in Atlantis and awarding opportunities for them. Sometimes we get carried away with our passion for that. And in this particular instance, there were two instances identified by the AG. The one was a tender for security services in Atlantis. And unfortunately, the points scored by the SMME was second when compared to a national bidder, and we had gone with the local SMME. However, the tender itself, in terms of the TOR, was not written as clearly and specific in terms of our goals and us wanting to achieve that local SMME participation. So I think it's lessons learned for us. We've reached out to Provincial Treasury to get some guidance and assistance from them. We're rolling out training, and we'll obviously go through the consequence management processes as well and deal with the matter and apply for condemnation. The second instance was, so there were just the two identified by the AG. The second one dealt with how we award work around our panel that we established. And here again, it was not given, preference was not given to the service provider that scored the highest points. So very similar instance.
Thank you. Member Van Wyk, is your hand up? No? Member Lekker, and then Van Wyk. Member Lekker first.
Just to follow up, if on the second tender, the preference was not given to the highest scorer, how did you remedy the situation?
What's you?
We're actually going through a process of investigating the second matter because we have to go back to the original establishment of the panel and look for where we have had instances similar to it. So I think once the investigation has been completed, we'll probably be in a better position to be able to report on it at the conclusion stage of it.
Thank you. Let's move on to Part F. Part F, Member Van Wyk first.
Yes, Chair, I'm not sure if I'm really in Part F, but it really goes to, this is a project that seemingly is coming along quite nicely. It is progressing nicely into fruition as to what it needs. And I've just sort of gone back here to key activities of 23-24, which is way back on page 52. And that almost relates in calling at risks on the one stage and looking at prospects, on where you're going, because somewhere you need to have some form of booster thrust, particularly if the HOD wants to achieve the target she needs to achieve by 2035 in terms of the trillion rand economy. And, I just wonder whether our investment promotion pitch is achieving the type of traction that it should be getting in where we are. I had something to do with I think it's Subhana Jorong, the Singapore group who professes to be the world best implementers of these private economic zones, or whatever they call it, that they create around the world. Now, you've won certain awards, and I imagine, one must perhaps try and learn from the guys who sell the sizzle or the drum roll before the band arrives or before the steak arrives, to try and get where you need to get to. So, I'm just, what I'm saying is, how does one boost yourself to get where you can get, and are there some additional measures that can be implemented to make it look even better next year?
I'm just going to ask about the same 131. Is again, your advertising has dropped quite significantly, and the reason I asked the previous ones also because if you don't advertise, you don't maybe get business. So that is maybe the question behind it. Did it impact your business because you're not advertising? Because that is a significant drop. And so that is why I'm asking. I'm not asking for any other reason. I know you must cut costs. And then you also have a big reduction in consulting and professional fees. Maybe you can explain that, why that huge reduction. And then you have explained about the security, why that has jumped to that significant amount. But members, questions? CEO, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me talk about the booster and the investment pitch to start off with, and I'll ask the CFO just to talk about the advertising spend and the consulting and professional fees decline. I'll talk about it at a general level. We are very lucky, I think, in the environment in which we work. We work extremely closely with Wesgro. We work extremely closely with the City of Cape Town and their investment promotion agency. We work very well with National DTIC, with Invest SA, particularly their Green Desk, and across the board with Green Cape and other entities, and with support from the department. We really align ourselves to almost ride off the back of a lot of those activities. So, for example, the City of Cape Town will take out a stand at, say, the African Green Economy Summit, and we will ask for a space as part of their stand. So, in a funny kind of way, we've cut back on our normally we would pay for that ourselves. So we've been able to cut back on some of those costs, but make up for it through leveraging these partnerships and relationships. We don't get as much exposure. It's not as glamorous and glitzy sometimes as some of the others, but it gets us there and it gets our foot in the door, and that's all we need. So I think the system is working very well, and certainly we benefit enormously from it. The pipeline of investors that we have is very exciting. And our biggest challenge right now is money to put the civil works in to open up zone 2 and 3. We have the money and we're almost complete with putting in the civil works for zone 1, and we're starting to build the first factory. But we've got, if all the investors in our pipeline land tomorrow, we don't have enough land in the SEZ. They're not going to do that. That's a pipe dream. But we are working and progressing investors all the time. And so the concern from our side is that we may lose some in the next 2 or 3 years because we haven't got the civils ready for zone 2 and 3. And that's almost the biggest risk that we face right now from that perspective. But the interest is certainly there. Mahida, the advertising and consulting.
Thanks. I think the CEO did cover in quite detail around the advertising and collaborating with the partners. I think if you look at pages 51 and 52 of the annual report, you'll see some of the those initiatives that we've basically collaborated on, where we were able to save in relation to funds that we would have had to spend in relation to those activities. Maybe just to mention that in the previous financial year, we had run a CNN campaign that had cost us quite a bit of money in the 2023 year, and there was another campaign that we ran, the SA Inc. campaign as well. So those we did not do in the current financial year as well. Just in relation to the consulting and professional fees, so because of the budget cuts and us having had a 4% cut as well, we've had to reprioritize and re-strategize in relation to that. So there was a need for us to relook at consulting fees in particular, whereas in like the previous financial year, we had spent on some of the what we refer to as the living lab strategies, like our waste strategy, energy strategies, the greening of the zone itself. We had not had to have incurred those costs in the current financial year. We also spent last year in terms of a railway study that was done to look at the Atlantis link to Cape Town, and that costs obviously have not come through this year as well. And then the other amount that we spent in the previous financial year was around reviewing the organizational structure and the design to see if that was going to service us for the next period of our development.
Thank you very much. Member Peters, did you have a question? Because we lost you and I see you back.
Yes, Chairperson, it was only about that building. Does it belong to the institution?
The building that you are in at the moment.
Unspent conditional grants, Chairperson.
Yeah. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that that's a property we purchased. We got permission from the department and the minister to actually purchase the property that's in what we refer to as Zone 4, which is in the designated Atlantis SEZ zones. And we have a tenant in that building, so it does belong to us. I think that's what the member is referring to there. And then on the unspent conditional grants, so when we do receive conditional grant funding, for example, from the DTIC, it's normally for a construction project that could take between 18 to 24 months to complete. So then the spend is recognized as we go through the construction cycle. So you'll see that if you go to note 25 of the financial statements, that all of those monies have been committed in terms of awards being made to the main contractors for those projects.
Thank you very much. Did you outsource the cleaning? The cleaning here, I'm just checking, the cleaning has also dropped significantly.
Okay, in relation to the cleaning, so we used to have a presence in Cape Town. We used to have an office at the Reserve Bank, and we moved out of that premises, and we're mostly operating from Atlantis with a satellite office in Safety City. So cleaning expenses have been reduced.
Thank you, members. That's all the questions. Thank you. We're going to... Oh, Member Petrus, your hand is up?
Yes, Chairperson, you asked the question about the security. I'm not fully covered there. What is the amount for that security per property, Chairperson?
Thank you very much. See you.
So at the moment, this amount that's being reflected is really just on zones 2 and 3, which are not being developed at the moment. So it's patrolling and it's the building that we purchased. But that figure is actually going to increase with us having completed zone 1 construction. So we're looking at that figure of spending at least 2 million a year on security.
Member Peter, you got that?
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to conclude now. I'm just going to give the CEO opportunity to closing remarks, and then the HOD, and then Member van Wyk is going to thank the HOD for spending the afternoon with us. How's that? CEO?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Yeah, we really appreciate the questions and the interest. And we are very positive from our perspective on the future and the progress that we're making. I think we've got a great team. We filled our vacancies. And I think there's a very positive mood in the organization at the moment. There are some big risks and challenges looming. We're figuring out ways to take those on, but I think for now we are making good progress. Thank you.
HOD.
Thank you very much, SCOPA members and Chair, and for the last entity standing in the room. I'd really like to thank the committee for their attention, for the difficult and very pointed questions. I mean, I'm not going to lie, but that's your job. I just want to say that we have 3 entities. They're very different entities, and what we have worked very hard on and themselves is how do we work as a collective, because as Honourable Member van Wyk was saying, is the 1 trillion rand target is not a small one. I think South Africa only very briefly, once in the last 30 years, actually achieved the target that we were setting on, because it's not about the 1 trillion rand target, it's the 4 to 6% or 5% growth rate that we're aiming for. Because we know how much jobs that 5% is going to give us. And our budget is not increasing, which means that we have to work as a collective, not only just amongst ourselves and our entities, but also about collaboration with other departments and other outside players like the funders and the donors. And so we're hoping that as you've reviewed the fiscal and the governance and the risks, that you would see that, one, we are prudently using the funding that we get from the fiscus, but that also we are deploying it in a way that's going to get us our goals. So thank you very much, Chair, and the committee. Oh, and I need to thank the AG and the our audit committee as well for keeping us on our toes. Thank you.
Yeah, Member van Wyk.
Thank you, Chair. I think as HOD was speaking, she now sort of scrambled my mind even a little bit further as to what I would like to say. But I think what we have seen here out of this department, and you know, the annual reports may well be heavy, but I think we are dealing with a heavy set of issues here, because the whole area of economic development in its broader sense is a complex, very complex area, and it is not that simple to deal with. And maybe if the chair is going to offer us some refreshments afterwards, then I can perhaps tell you another little story, which is a bit of a joke around some of that. But I think I want to thank the department and the entities involved here for their excellent work over the past year. I think it has been absolutely wonderful to see what you are doing. And you please keep on with the flame over there and carrying that that flame forward in what we need to do. Because to me, what is exciting is to get to that 4 to 6% that we need to get to. And I think if we look at the number of the other countries around the world who have been successful in changing their circumstances, we've got to make a go for it in South Africa and take those big steps to get there. And you know, so certainly it's wonderful to see the work that you're doing, and I think these annual reports are testament to a heck of a lot of good work that's been done behind. So I think thank you very much from the committee point of view, and I think from public accounts, we've been through a hectic few weeks, and I think it's going to be quite a shock to the system for the rest of this week for us. I see Mr. David is smiling because hopefully he's still got a bit of work to do for collating everything. But I think thank you to the department, thank you to yourself, Chair, and to Public Accounts team, and then to the AG and the audit committees for all their work that they've also done. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The committee will stay behind, but please also thank the members for it was tough, and it's the last department, but I also want to thank Mr. Dasser Davids, Mrs. Z. Groete, and Ms. Sinclair at the back for making our lives easier and for coordinating everything. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, members. Like we do as normal, Mr. David's going to read the resolutions, and then if you want to add, please do. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you very much through you, Chair. Just some conceptual, good evening, members. Good afternoon, members. Chair, if I can just, some notes that I made, Chair, on some concerns and some requests for information, etc. For example, Chair, Member Van Wyk spoke about the risk that's considered in the department, and Member Van Wyk asked, are these targets and those of the entities the predetermined objectives in relation to the risk identify and cutting the red tape, and basically are they relevant and all of that? So, Chair, we will basically have to, I don't know if the member wants it noted as a concern, as a note in the report, or to call the department or the AG back for a briefing on that.
I think Member Van Wyk wanted general, so we're going to put in the proper report for all the departments and entities.
As a transversal note.
Yeah, transversal note.
Got it, Chair. Chair, then on Member Lekker's question about the enabling environment for small business in the township, Member Lekker indicated that she would want to speak about that in this resolution session. Are we going to ask them for a report on how they, or are we going to ask them to come and brief us, Chair, for the financial year under review?
Member, a report will be fine. Okay.
A report, no problem. Got that, Chairperson. Then Chairperson, basically.
But didn't they answer that when she was out? Remember, it was out. No, I'm joking. Go on.
Yeah, it was a high-level analysis. Then for the decrease in the assets on page 243, which is your statement of financial position, the department indicated that they can give us a report on that, Chairperson. And then, Chair, regarding your corporate social investment of Westgrowth, they've also said that they can give us a report on that, Chairperson, especially with regards to the youth and their plan going forward, Chair. And Chair, once again, the Atlantis indicate there was nothing for Saldanha Bay. It was basically just your CSI question, Chair, your corporate service identity for the entity, and in the SEM processes that and on the AG's presentations. Chair, but for Saldanha Bay SEZ, it was basically how many companies benefited from the preferential procurement
of the entities. They say that they can give us a report, and then you also ask of the SCI, the corporate social initiatives for the under review. They say that they can give us a report on that, Chair. That was basically it, Chair, that what I've for resolutions. And
Member Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe because I don't sit in this committee, you would forgive me. I would like to request for a copy of the G4J strategy.
Copy of the G4
jobs. No. Okay. Is that it, members? Member van Wyk?
Just for purposes of committee, that the cash flow statements that we get in latter day, because it's been there now for quite a few years from an accounting perspective, what that cash flow statement is meant to show, it is taking, because your financial position is the picture at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So between those 2 points, what we used to call in the old days was, where did the funds come from? So in other words, the source of the funds, and how did you apply it? So what did you do? So in other words, if you know, in simple terms, if you receive a salary of 1,000 Rand in the year, what did you then spend it on? So that's really what the cash flow become, but they've made it very technical now. And there are many accountants who've lived through the system who still argue and say that the old system was a lot simpler to understand and more specific. But because accounting's become so technical now, it just makes it more complicated.
So that's just a comment. Thank you. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. There's some refreshments at the back. Thank you, members. I do appreciate your attendance. It's the last. We're over. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay, for you've done a very good job chairing these committees. I think that can be